Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 6. This is an urgent transmission, and it's coming from the real Ismael Perez. Remember, he gets transmissions probably daily, but he gives them to us about 3 times a week. There's been a disclosure urgent message that he wants to give us. It's about 40 minutes. But before we do that, this is going to test your religion. It's going to test your faith. This is about that meeting that they had with the religious leaders, and this was all across the world, not just in America with the pastor, with Christian pastors. And lo and behold, the religion that's best suited to receive this information are the Hindus. This is DOGMA. DOGMA is ending now. Now, the most powerful organization in the world is the Vatican. The Vatican has had this information since its inception, and they hid it from us. They've even gone out of their way to create many of secret society in their basement to cause the chaos so that they are needed, right? This is about control. That's really all it really ever was once the Roman Empire took over religion and gave it to us, right? So it's all been about manipulation and not giving us the truth. The truth is now coming out. So that's dogma, right? We believe what they give us, pretty much. The Junta virus, I think that's how you say it. It's real, but that stuff on that ship is fake. There's a lot of fake stuff about to come out, and it's about to they're trying to cause chaos. You can see the videos, and you can tell a lot of those videos they released are AI. You got shadows on people's faces. It's not moving, and all type of stuff. So please have no fear. There's nothing to fear here. Once again, nothing to fear. If you don't believe in fear, if you know nothing can touch you, nothing will touch you. And a lot of our religious leaders didn't know. They're not awake. They didn't know. They knew what they were taught. We know what we're taught. We're indoctrinated by our parents, by our religious leaders, by our teachers, our government leaders. They're just teaching what they were taught. It's because most of them don't know. Most of them don't know. And the ones that do, they go against the grain, well, they get persecuted, right? So forgive them, and then most importantly, forgive yourself for believing it. You have to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for everything. And then let go of all these attachments. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. So, what's religion? Religion equals look within, have no fear, and know that you are a fractal of God expressing himself. Close the book. This is the greatest paradigm shift that humanity has ever seen. I hope we are ready. We have to be ready. There is no choice. Remember to like, share, subscribe. I love all y'all. Roll it.
You know I will let the 9 burst. West Coast mixtape, kiss my Converse. Before you play your part, gotta read your lines first. Before it's in your heart, gotta be in your mind first. Getting my prayers in, I'm just trying to do what the Lord says.
Surprise live early in the day. I know I never go live at this time, but you know, the rumors are actually facts that there are a lot of pastors right now that are being prepared by the government for disclosure. Now, this is not just happening among Christendom. This is actually happening with all world religions at this time. And so this is a presentation that I want to give you guys so that you guys could understand the dynamics of what's happening from behind the scenes in terms of preparing the world religions for full disclosure. And I guess I'm just going to get right into it since I only have about 30 to 40 minutes to give you guys a rundown as to what's happening right now with all the world religions, not just a selective group of pastors that have been briefed and have been told to prepare their congregations for what is coming. So, as we move deeper into an age of disclosure, the truth has been circulating through political institutions for quite some time. And let's face it, the Vatican, right, has had access to this information since its inception, right? They've just played dumb. Of course, has been also circulating within all intelligence communities, military sectors, and even religious organizations that humanity is not alone, and in fact, that we are approaching what is known as the greatest revelation in recorded history. So according to Alliance briefings, global governments are no longer the only groups being quietly prepared for the existence of non-human intelligences. It turns out that all world religious leaders right now, from pastors to rabbis to imams, for those that are part of the Muslim religion, to monks, gurus, cardinals, and even spiritual elders, are all being briefed behind closed doors about a coming paradigm shift that could forever alter humanity's understanding of religion, creation, right? They lied to us about creation and our place in the cosmos. And there is a reason for this. Per Commander Valiant Thor, they have a deadline, or else, you know it, massive appearances. So this is going to be getting very interesting, however this unfolds, Galactic Jedis. From this perspective, world religions were never entirely wrong, okay? They were just not told the whole story. Instead, they interpreted contact with higher intelligences through the symbolic and spiritual language that was available during those days, during that time, right? The angels, the watchers, as described in all of these holy books, the devas, the sky beings, and even the celestial messengers were all described through every sacred tradition. And we also know that not only were they described through every sacred tradition, but there's been many real encounters with these multidimensional beings, as recorded in all holy texts, interactions all throughout history. Okay, so now that the age of deceit is coming to an end, known as the Kali Yuga, right, the Iron Age in Western terminology, certain factions within the Earth Alliance, which is, of course, a coalition of military, intelligence, and humanitarian groups that have been operating from behind the scenes, have been tasked by the commanders of the Galactic Alliance with preparing civilization for the truth in order to avoid societal collapse. Now, the challenge, however, is immense, revealing that humanity is not alone. It just not only affects science and politics, as we were taught, of course. It seems like even the educational foundation, logic as we know it, physics, it's all going to have to be rewritten, okay? History, of course, philosophy, it's going to affect every field of study, not just religion, economics, and of course, the concept of the human identity itself. We know, guys, that for thousands of years, humanity has looked to religions, institutions for answers regarding the great beyond, the higher power, death, morality, life, and of course, creation and the divine. Well, if advanced extraterrestrial or interdimensional intelligences openly reveal themselves, you guys realize that billions of people would immediately begin questioning the meaning of Scripture as written and the origin of humanity as taught. Religious leaders, therefore, currently occupy a critical role in maintaining stability during such revelation that will lead to a great transition. According to Commander Valiant Thor, high-level meetings have been occurring between representatives of not only global governments and, of course, influential spiritual leaders from all multiple faiths all over the world. It's not just happening with just pastors, okay? This is happening with every religious organization. Well, these briefings are said to involve discussions about how to interpret ancient scripture in light of, again, the emerging facts of these heavenly beings described in all sacred texts that have been advanced interdimensional intelligences that have always interacted with humanity throughout history. And so, within Christianity, this would require reevaluating angels, fallen angels, heavenly chariots, prophetic visions, and even apocalyptic events. In Islam, discussions would actually emerge around the Djinn, which this is what they consider their interpretation of angels or fallen angels, heavenly messengers, and beings made of smokeless fire. Now, the Hindu traditions already contain extensive descriptions of celestial beings, flying craft, multidimensional realms, and cosmic cycles that many believe parallel modern-day disclosure narratives. So it turns out that out of all the five world religions, the five major world religions, the Hindu religion is the one that is ahead of the game, okay? Because they have a more detailed understanding of what's about to be revealed. Whereas the three Western religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are probably going to have a little bit more difficulty digesting what's about to be revealed. So, even the Buddhist teachings have regarded these higher dimensional consciousness and non-physical entities that could also gain, of course, renewed attention with what's going to be disclosed. And so even the Buddhists are preparing for what's coming. So rather than seeing it as, let's just say, the greatest shift in human understanding, because everything's going to change. Our educational system, history, the laws of physics, everything is going to be changing as a result of this. So some believe that if the pastors and religious organizations begin the preparation process to their congregations, that proponents of this believe that disclosure could fundamentally transform religion from its rigid dogma. Where am I getting here? Well, we do know that religions, will begin to shift away from this rigid institutionalized interpretation into a more cosmic understanding of reality and spirituality. Well, there seems to be a fusion taking place, or that will be taking place as a result of this great reveal. And that is what we call esotericism, spirituality, and of course, organized religions, a bleed through, okay? Now, when this is revealed, humanity will understand that they have always been part of a vaster living universe filled with conscious civilizations at every stage of evolution, from a type 1 to a type 5, right? So the divine itself would also no longer be confined to Earth alone, but understood as a universal intelligence expressed throughout creation. However, it is believed that time may be running out for controlled disclosure. You guys are going to love this, okay? There is a deadline. Per Commander Valiant Thor, advanced human intelligences that we know as the Galactic Alliance have grown increasingly impatient with humanity's secrecy systems and manipulation structures. Well, these star nations are described as highly advanced interstellar civilizations observing Earth during a critical evolutionary transition in human consciousness. And so they are putting the fire under the Alliance. They have been given a deadline. According to Commander Valiant Thor, the Galactic Alliance has issued what some describe as an energetic or diplomatic ultimatum to factions within the Earth governments. Begin preparing humanity for open contact and released all suppressed information regarding extraterrestrial life, or direct contact will occur regardless of government readiness, per Commander Valiant Thor. Wow, this is fascinating. Okay, so not only are they going to be beginning preparing humanity for disclosure, but they also have a deadline. Okay, so the idea has fueled that world governments are attempting to slowly acclimate humanity through controlled media releases, whistleblower testimonies, UFO disclosures, military footage that will be seen all over the news. And of course, this will in turn cause an increasing public discussion about non-human intelligences. The sudden mainstream acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena over recent years is viewed by believers as evidence that disclosure is already underway. Yet, from this perspective, the process is moving too slowly, according to the Galactics. And that's why they're now putting fire, right, as to why they have been tasked or have been told to prepare the religious organizations. Apparently, there are still little loose groups that have attempted to halt disclosure, right? The whites, Alan Cole, Cole, that was his name, because powerful institutions like the Vatican fear losing control over humanity once people realize that civilization has been manipulated through fear, division, war, and of course, spiritual ignorance for centuries. Well, they have argued that disclosure, these preventers, right, what remains of the deep state, they have argued that disclosure would cause economic collapse, religious upheaval, and the destabilization of the global power structure. Well, don't we want the destabilization of the global power structure because it's been corrupt for the last thousands of years? However, according to Commander Valiant Thor, the Galactic Alliance views humanity as spiritually mature enough to begin learning the truth. This is where the concept of a deadline is now emerging, my friends. The idea suggests that Earth is entering a transformational period that is tied to shifts in consciousness, planetary frequencies, and of course, cosmic cycles. As this transition accelerates, maintaining secrecy surrounding extraterrestrial and interdimensional life becomes increasingly impossible. Let's just be real. More people are reporting sightings, contact experiences, spiritual awakenings, and of course, unexplained phenomena that we can't justify with pure logic. Well, within this worldview, open contact is portrayed as an unveiling. The beings associated with the Galactic Alliance are described as understanding that humanity has been psychologically conditioned to fear the unknown, right? And this is why a lot of these Christian organizations are falsely stating that all interdimensional beings are demons, right? They forget about polarity. They forget about the angels and demons, good and evil. So, this is why, according to understanding how humanity has been conditioned to fear the unknown, the Galactics have, of course, avoided, or let's just say not the Galactics, but people in general, because of this, because they were told to fear the unknown. The Galactics know this. They have avoided mass appearances for decades. Okay, so the Galactics had to step back for decades because of this. Until now, of course, because they see an increase in critical mass. So what they did is they waited for thousands of years. The Galactic Federation, then known as the 2022 the Galactic Alliance, they waited for thousands of years, allowing to humanity to evolve spiritually and psychologically before undeniable contact occurs. However, the window for gradual disclosure is rapidly closing in due to the cycles. If global leaders refuse to reveal what they know, then, according to Val Thor, these intelligences may simply reveal themselves directly through undeniable sightings across major cities worldwide. We're talking about huge craft, right? Massive craft appearing openly everywhere, millions of them. That's what's going to be happening if the government fails to disclose the truth, per Commander Valiant Thor. So, in either way, guys, we are going to have disclosure very, very soon. And of course, we know that such an event would completely, instantly shatter the old worldview. Everything we've ever been taught will have to be reevaluated. And you know, the powers that have known about this for quite some time. Right? That's why the negative SSP, the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, which is really the, neocon deep state cabal since Project Operation, what is it called? Paperclip. They've known about this, right? So religious institutions will be forced to reinterpret ancient teachings. Scientific paradigms would undergo radical transformation. Humanity's understanding of consciousness, technology, spirituality, and history would immediately expand overnight. Like that, okay? The ancient division between the heavens and the physical universe would apparently disappear. And in many ways, this could be the ending of dogma and the beginning of mass spirituality. So humanity would begin viewing itself not only as an isolated species on a isolated, lonely planet, but as a part of a vaster cosmic family extending across dimensions, solar systems, and multiple galaxies and universes. The angels and demons of old will no longer be seen as mythology, but as humanity's earliest attempts to describe interactions with intelligences beyond ordinary perception. And according to the Galactic Alliance, because this is the truth of the matter, then the greatest disclosure in human history is not just going to be about extraterrestrials, but also about the truth regarding our full reality spectrum and how we have only been conditioned to exist and perceive within a rather small, narrow bandwidth. So, all of this will be about the realization that humanity has always lived within a multidimensional cosmos filled with conscious beings, and that the boundary between spirituality and the stars was never truly separate at all. Throughout human history, it is known that civilizations across the world have spoken of luminous beings descending from the heavens, invisible forces influencing humanity, whether for good or evil, celestial wars in the skies, and of course, entities existing beyond the veil of ordinary perception. Ancient cultures called them angels, demons, archons, watchers, devas, djinn, star gods, and of course, messengers from the heavens. Today, modern humanity increasingly describes these similar phenomena using rather a different language. Now they're calling them extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, ultra-terrestrials, non-human intelligences, and of course, entities operating outside of our conventional space and time 3D reality. Well, what if all of these are not separate phenomena, but it's all describing the same beings under different terminologies, right? So what if the angels and the demons of the ancient world are the same intelligences that humanity is encountering through the modern UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena, right? However, interpreted through what? Different cultural lenses, depending on the era. Well, this possibility has become one of the most fascinating intersections between spirituality, ancient religion, quantum physics, metaphysics, and of course, modern disclosure movements. According to this perspective, Galactic Jedis, humanity has never been alone, and that is just the God's honest fact. These intelligences have always existed alongside of us, operating from higher layers of reality that coexist with our physical world, but remained largely invisible to the human senses. Ancient people understood reality very differently than modern civilization. They viewed existence as multidimensional. And this is before the dawn of organized religion. I'm talking about the ancients, right? Those that were part of a spiritual universal understanding, the indigenous cultures, right? The heavens to them were not just outer space. They knew that they were different layer realms of consciousness and frequency beyond our perception. The ancients believed that These were worlds above worlds, planes inhabited by spiritual intelligence capable of interacting with humanity under certain conditions. Well, this explains why both angels and demons, depending on which interpretation or Bible or religious text, this is why they've always had access to our realm, but we never had access to their realm. Well, this explains how they come from higher realities. And for those that have been studying this subject for quite some time, we do know, as in the case of those roulette dolls, that the higher intelligences who operate from higher realities always have access to the lower realities, right? This explains why when we ascend to the fifth dimensional or higher world, Earth, we're going to have access to multiple realities, whereas the Earth Terrans are only going to have access to fourth D Earth, right? So we're going to be considered celestials popping into their reality at the trifurcation of timelines. Well, prophets of old, mystics, shamans, and even initiates believed to have communicated with these realms through visions, dreams, meditation, rituals, and even altered states of consciousness. Well, in modern times, however, humanity has become conditioned to interpret reality primarily through material science. As civilization advanced technologically over the ages, the spiritual language of the ancient world slowly transformed into scientific terminology. So what the ancient cultures once called heavenly beings, modern society is calling them extraterrestrials. That is the correspondence, my friends. So this is one of the many ways in which these religious congregations, without having a complete breakdown, right, or massive cognitive dissonance, this is one of the ways in which they will be able then to understand what was reduced to just allegory, metaphors, and symbols. To give you guys a further example, how many of you guys have read the Old Testament? I'm sure a lot of you guys have, right? And throughout the Old Testament, there has been descriptions of chariots of fire, right, which are what we call today unidentifying flying objects, different terminology, same phenomena, right? Encounters that once were considered divine visitations became categorized as what? Contact experiences. Yet the descriptions themselves remain remarkably similar. Across biblical texts and ancient scriptures, angels are repeatedly described as winged humans, but with a luminous, powerful aura, right, associated with light, vibration, energy, wheels within wheels, per the book of Ezekiel, the prophet of the Old Testament, right? I mean, the entire Old Testament is about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, and having conversations with these beings, right? The prophets of old, flying craft and overwhelming frequencies. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet describes shining entities descending from the heavens, accompanied by rotating wheels of fire and radiant metallic objects. Well, that is no different than today's craft, my friends. Many modern researchers have pointed out that even these descriptions resemble advanced aerial phenomena more than symbolic religious imagery. Well, the same is true in the many ancient traditions, not just in Christendom. According to the Hindu Vedas, they describe the Vimanas, which are flying celestial craft that are capable of traversing the skies and dimensions. Sumerian texts also speak of the Anunnaki descending from the heavens to influence humanity. Ancient Egyptian traditions all described star beings connected to Sirius and Orion guiding civilization. Let's not forget the indigenous cultures worldwide have all spoke about the sky people, serpent beings, right, the reptilians, thunder beings like Zeus and Thor, and luminous visitors who taught humanity knowledge, agriculture, astronomy, and of course, spiritual wisdom. Well, rather than seeing these as separated myths, what if these stories are actually representing fragment accounts of humanity's interactions with higher dimensional intelligences throughout all of history, as stated in all the scriptures. Well, according to the esoteric traditions, which is the common denominator in which all major world religions stemmed from, right? The esoteric tradition has always maintained that pure doctrine. According to esoteric traditions, reality itself exists in layers of vibration or frequency. And this is where I believe that the laws of physics are going to be altered, right? All of a sudden, Newtonian mechanics has flaws when you start considering other realities. The physical world that humans perceive is only a narrow bandwidth within a far greater multidimensional spectrum. So that's going to change everything regarding science. Just as radio frequencies coexist, right, invisibly in the same space without interfering with one another, that's exactly how these other realities exist that are operating alongside our own reality while remaining beyond ordinary perception. Well, within this framework, angels and demons are not necessarily beings from distant planets traveling through physical space-time alone. Instead, what if they are just interdimensional intelligences capable of moving between frequencies and dimensions, which is what separates the realms? Some traditions describe them as existing within the astral planes, etheric planes or realms, or even subtle dimensions overlapping Earth itself. Well, for those who've been following me for quite some time, you guys know that I believe that Earth is a multidimensional construct, right? There are different layers of Earth that are imperceptible to the naked eye. So all of this makes perfect sense. Now, this could also explain why many encounters throughout history involve beings suddenly appearing and disappearing, right? As they are interfacing between realities, moving through solid objects, manipulating consciousness, or even communicating telepathically. Well, such abilities would seem supernatural to ancient people. But from a multidimensional perspective, they're just technology. They're reflecting technologies or consciousness capable and capabilities far beyond human current understanding, or far beyond humanity's current understanding. And that is just a fact. Now, the concept of the fallen angel also becomes especially interesting when viewed through this lens. Many ancient traditions describe not only benevolent celestial beings, the angels, but also hostile or manipulative entities that sought influence over humanity. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? The Lizzies. Well, biblical stories have spoken of rebellious angels descending to earth and corrupting civilization. Gnostic teachings described archons, parasitic entities, and of course, that have manipulated human consciousness and have trapped souls in the lower states of awareness. Numerous spiritual systems described these lower astral entities feeding off of fear, chaos, violence, and division. In modern terminology, it is interpreted that these beings as negative interdimensional intelligences that are hostile functions of these other realms that we cannot see. Now, according to these revelations, humanity exists within an ongoing struggle between forces that are seeking to elevate consciousness, the angels, and forces that are seeking to keep civilization trapped in fear, separation, and spiritual ignorance, the demons, so that they could feed off of that, right? That negative energy that is generated by trauma and fear. So, throughout history, religions may have encoded this cosmic struggle into symbolic languages understandable to ancient societies. The battle between angels and demons could therefore represent more than just mythology. It may actually symbolize competing intelligences influencing human evolution from behind the scenes for thousands of years. One of the most controversial and suppressed truths that I can't wait for them to reveal is the idea that humanity itself possesses dormant spiritual and multidimensional potential. Many esoteric traditions teach that human beings themselves are far more than just biological organisms. Ancient mystery schools taught that consciousness is capable of transcending the physical body and interacting with higher realities. According to this perspective, spiritual awakening is not just about our psychological growth, but about the activation of dormant aspects of human consciousness that allow greater perception of these higher dimensions. This is why meditation, prayer, fasting, sacred geometry, breath work, and even altered states of consciousness, whether you do it through meditation or plant medicine, appear repeatedly across ancient spiritual traditions. These practices, my friends, have been believed to help quiet the mind and expand awareness beyond ordinary physical perception. And this is the reason why I encourage you all to spend at least 10 to 15 minutes a day in meditation. Because when you do that, you are enabling communication with these higher intelligences. Many contact experiencers today report similar phenomena. Encounters with non-human intelligences that are often preceded by what? Altered states of consciousness, vivid dreaming, or even synchronicities, and of course, telepathic communication, or some profound spiritual experience. Now, unlike the purely mechanical extraterrestrials portrayed in Hollywood, which I believe for the most part, that is designed to steer and incite fear regarding our Star Nation allies, these entities are frequently described as deeply connected to consciousness itself. This has led many researchers to conclude that the UFO phenomenon is not just extraterrestrial, but interdimensional and spiritual in nature. Modern disclosure discussions, therefore, increasingly point towards the possibility that advanced intelligences are capable of manipulating space, time, gravity, and consciousness simultaneously. The truth is this, guys, that humanity is approaching, since they have a deadline, a profound paradigm shift in understanding even reality itself. The ancient separation between science and spirituality will therefore collapse. The heavens described in ancient scripture may refer to not only distant stars, but to higher dimensions of existence operating all around us. Angels may have been interpreted as divine because ancient humanity lacked the scientific vocabulary to describe advanced interdimensional beings. So they just called them angels. Likewise, demons may represent these lower frequency intelligences operating within unseen energetic layers of reality, which is what we call the new sphere, for those that have studied Rudolf Steiner, or of course the lower astral realm, fourth dimensional astral realm. Humanity will now be rediscovering what ancient civilizations once understood when this disclosure takes place. And that is that reality is by far more vaster, more multidimensional, and technically alive than modern materialism has allowed us to believe. Because even science has become like organized religion, right? They have only adhered to a strict rules of principles and regulations that have been accepted by a community of scientists, which to me is dogma. Even science has become rigid dogma. Let's be real. So as global disclosure accelerates and consciousness expands, more people are beginning to question whether humanity's ancient spiritual stories were actually encoded memories of genuine encounters with intelligences beyond our realm, world, whatever you want to call it, perhaps the angels and demons never left either. And I believe they haven't. I believe that they have always been here. Think about it, right? Perhaps they have always been here watching, influencing, guiding, and interacting with humanity from realms beyond our visible physical spectrum. And perhaps the greatest revelation of all is not that we are being visited, because we have been. Not only have we been visited for thousands of years, but we are still continuing to interact with them within both the private sector, the alliance, and the cabal, but that humanity is finally beginning to remember the multidimensional nature of reality itself. Now, this is where I believe is going to create a paradigm shift overnight. Now, Galactic Jedis, I wasn't planning on going live, but this has been the greatest, you could say, news that I've heard regarding prepping religious organizations, right? Prepping religious organizations for full disclosure. This is fascinating. You know, I wasn't going to wait till Monday to cover this topic. I needed to go live, even if it's just a brief live, 45-minute live, in order to let you guys know what's actually happening behind closed doors. The Galactic Alliance is very active right now, and this is not just happening to Christian pastors. This is happening to all world religions. And you know who is the biggest one of all that is probably crying right now because they know that their time is up? Who is the oldest religious organization on the planet that has in fact been at the core of the cabal for over 1,700 years? Can you guys leave it in the chat? Take a lucky guess. The biggest threat of this, to this, which what is happening, is the Vatican. The Vatican, yes, the Vatican. The Vatican is currently done with, and they know it. And there is nothing they can do, guys. The Vatican, the core of the old guard, right? The engine of the continued Holy Roman Empire under a new name, a European Union, NATO, WEF, WEC, whatever, World Economic Forum, all of that, it's all coming to an end because of that. Once you remove the core, right, this orchestrated, planned, resurrected Holy Roman Empire is fallen.